Hello there everyone! You joined me for what is hopefully the last video about Richmond Park, because I know you're all sick of it at this point. It's been the entirety of my content for 6 weeks now. But I promise you, this might be it. I'm not going to talk about it again, unless of course I talk about it in the next series, at which point, oh no. This is the big Richmond Park retrospective. I'm just going to look back at the whole series. What would I have done differently? What will I do differently in the next series? What did I like? What didn't I like? What have I learned? I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Richmond Park was a perfect series, you know? I'm not going to say that Making a Splash is the peak of entertainment, because it's not. It's, what, 40 minutes of the most boring build you're ever going to see. But either way, I've learned from it in the end. And yeah, this episode is going to be about going over everything that I've learned, what I did not like, what I thought about each episode individually, and what the next series is going to look like. But first, there are a couple of things that I want to mention, but I'm not going to get the chance to otherwise, so I'll do it here. You may have noticed there's a minor increase in the camera quality. That's right, I might have upgraded my camera. I say might, despite the fact I'm looking at an upgraded camera. Yeah, you're joining me in nice, crisp 4K, assuming you're watching in 4K. Yeah, I just felt that the phone camera wasn't good anymore. So yeah, I'm now in lovely 4K. And another thing, this is also completely unrelated. If you want to go and see me talk about theme parks and talk about what it's like being a theme park creator, I made an appearance on the Highs podcast, and it will be in the link will be in the description. But it's highly entertaining, so I go watch that. It's yeah, you get to see me talk because you weren't already sick of that. Anyway, on to the actual video. Anyway, I'll start positive. I'll go over everything I liked about Richmond Park. For a start, this was my first Planet Coaster series on YouTube, and I cannot understate how much fun I had making this. It was just a really fun time overall. Even if the end product wasn't amazing, I had fun making it, and that's all that matters to me. Alongside this, Richmond Park has taken the title of my favourite park I've ever made in Planet Coaster, because I think just watching it come together like this, in such a unique way for me, because that's not how I usually build parks, but just seeing it come together in this way it's created a park that's exactly what I was going for, you know, this weird mishmash of building styles and themes that don't go together whatsoever. Yeah, it's just turned out exactly how I wanted it to, and as a result, it is my favourite park I've ever built. As well as this, I really enjoyed the story aspect. You know, and while it did have to be changed about 7 times, because I'll take you for a peek behind the scenes, the story changed pretty much with every single episode as I introduced things, removed things. The story was not one solid thing from the start. It branched with the series. But I find that led to it being really interesting to me. I feel like it's different, is the point I'm getting at. You know, it's different from every other Planet Coaster series you see out there. You know, it's just a small family park with a story being told, but the story's out of order. I feel like that was executed quite well on my part. And sadly, this is the last thing I've listed that I like about the series. Because I knew people were going to see this, it caused me to put in so much extra detail, which, in my opinion, ended up making the park. Like I say, I love how this came out, and I think that extra detail that came from the, not pressure, but pressure, that I knew people were going to see this, I think it caused me to put in just that tiny bit more effort than I usually would. I think it's really helped the park to become, like, as good as it is. Just that extra detail, yeah, it's amazing to me. However, positivity must end there, sadly, because now let me get into what I didn't like about this series. For a start, the very structure of the videos themselves. Because, I mean, while there's nothing wrong with the time-lapse, then real-time section way I made them, I feel like that did lead to some problems. Mainly the fact that I didn't edit the time-lapse at all. Or until the final episode, at least. But I think that's probably the main drawback from this series for me, is that the time-lapse just wasn't edited in the slightest. Which, in concept, is fine, because it shows the full build process, but in reality, that means that it wasn't very interesting to watch. Because nobody wants to see me build, like, a toilet block for 40 minutes, do they? Or, in Making a Splash's case, building a log flume for 40 minutes, which should not have taken 40 minutes. Yeah, I think going into the next series, I'm definitely going to reevaluate how I do the time-lapse, because I'm going to keep the same structure of, like, voiceover time-lapse into a real-time section, but I'm definitely going to cut down the time-lapse. and just keep the highlights, because nobody wants to sit through that, and it ends up making 40-minute videos, which is actually exactly the next thing I didn't like about the series. How long each episode was. Because I constrained myself to 5 episodes, it kind of limited what could be built in each one. Well, not exactly limited, but it caused me to think, okay, this has to be built in this episode. I have to build, let's say, like, the thrill coaster in episode 2. That's why I have to build this episode. And I couldn't end the episode until that coaster was completely finished. Which you saw in the which, as you may have seen in the last episode, caused a major issue there when I had reached the last episode, but I still had 2 or 3 episodes worth of content to build. So yeah, the last episode ended up just being very, very busy. It was a mess. I think it was a good ending to the series still, but it ended up being a bit of a mess, just because of how much I had to build in that episode, just due to... It was completely my fault. I didn't plan well enough for that episode, so I ended up having to build too much. Anyway, back to the voiceover for a minute, because that's the next thing on my list. It's just the entire state of the voiceover. I can only apologise for how that came out. It is awful. I feel like this kind of came as a byproduct of me not editing the time-lapse. It's just because it's completely unscripted, because you heard in one of the episodes how I sound when I'm reading something from a script. But yeah, just because it was unscripted, I had to just sort of ramble to fill the time because the time-lapse wasn't edited. So while I was like stuck building the same like thing for 40 minutes, I had to just ramble on. And I feel like I've really hurt the series because it just... The voiceover didn't feel connected to the video. It just kind of felt like a thing that was going on in the background. And I started off loving that. But yeah, towards the end I was really like hating how that came out. And I put a lot more editing into the voiceover towards the end. Just because I didn't like how it sounded. But yeah, that's something I'm definitely going to take into the next series. With the edited time-lapse, the voiceover should be more on track. And if ever I run out of things to say, I'm just going to cut straight to the next interesting part of the time-lapse. And another thing I didn't like was the entire prologue. Because, I just remember, back in, the first week of the year, that was episode 1. And it was so bad I cut it from the series. So the next episode is not going to completely skip all the boring admin at the start, like building the entrance building and putting down all the paths and building the car park. But it's going to heavily, fly over that. It's not going to completely skip it. You will see some of that, but it's not going to dwell on it for as long as for an entire episode. There should be more exciting stuff in that episode. Anyway, that's enough for the basic what I like and what I don't like. Now, because I love a good ranking, so here is my ranking of all the episodes and why I put them there. In short, we're not going to be here forever. In 6th place, and I know what you're saying, there's 5 episodes, I'm counting the prologue. In 6th place is the prologue. I think it just kind of speaks for itself. It was so bad that I cut it from the series. I think that enough is said. It was just really boring. It was before I really nailed down the story at all. So yeah, it just did not fit in the timeline anymore. I couldn't put it as a chronological episode because of the nature of it, because of what was built. Sure, Vault was technically built in that episode, but it wasn't good. It didn't fit in, because then there'd be 2 episodes dedicated to Vault, and within the timeline that doesn't work. Hence why I just scrapped it, because it was slow and boring and really long, and I was going to say nobody liked it. I don't know that. I didn't like it, that's for sure. I hated that episode. It was awful. In 5th, the worst official episode, and I hinted at this earlier, was Making a Splash. Yeah, no, once again, I can only apologise for how this one came out. It was a very rushed episode, which is strange because it ended up being the longest episode. But yeah, it was just because I had a lot of coursework at the time that I needed to do, and of course that takes priority. So yeah, this episode got kind of rushed and time crunched, and eventually delayed until Friday instead of Tuesday. But I think it's reflected in the quality of that video. It's just really boring. Nobody wants to watch 40 minutes of log flume building. And yeah, it's the one episode I'd say it does not matter if you skip that one. It's just really boring. I'm not gonna lie. If I came very close to just scrapping that one. To just when I was done with it, I just came very close to saying, nah, yeah, never mind. That doesn't need to be here. And yeah, but look, I then realised it didn't make sense in the timeline if I then just removed that episode. So yeah, it's out, but I'm not proud of it. It's not a great episode. If anything, it's a bad episode. In fourth is A Shock to the System. The first episode, and I wouldn't say this one's bad. It's just very basic. This is when I'm still like getting to grips with the structure of the series, and as such, not a lot was built in this episode. Well, literally just theming up one coaster, and that was it. But like I said, I don't think it's a bad episode. I think it's perfectly fine on its own. It's just you can tell it's the first episode because it's very, very basic. In third, we have a controversial pick. Those Were the Days, the final episode. I'm shocked that I put this low, but yeah, like I mentioned earlier, it's just a very busy, hectic mess of an episode that realistically should have been 2 episodes. So if I could do it again, I would... So all of the weird filler rides I put in, those would be the episode before, and then the final episode would just be Big Dipper, and then the chronological tour at the end, because I feel like that would have worked so much better. But of course, due to the 5 episode limit, I couldn't do that, so I had to just kind of smush it all into the final episode. But so yeah, I think it was still a nice send off for the series. I think it got across nicely in the end. But it's just the 40 minutes before that were just kind of a bit boring. In number 2, we have There's a Thrill in the Air. I like this one. I really do like how this one came out. Not just the area, but the video itself. I feel like it's where I kind of got to grips with the structure of the series. I just feel like it flows better than episode 1 and episode 3. Definitely better than episode 3. Everything flows better than episode 3. But I feel like this is where it really started coming together. It all started making sense in my head. This also saw, the first major storyline change from a B&M Looper to a Vekoma STC. And I feel like, honestly, I'm so glad that change was made. Because there's a lot of footage that never came out, and I now have lost, of the B&M Looper being built. And I just could not nail down a theme for it. That's my main struggle with it. I just could not get a theme down. And it was really annoying me. Hence why I just kind of scrapped it and went to the Vekoma STC. On to number 1, my favourite episode is End of the Line, episode 4, which is also, strangely enough, the shortest episode. I just feel like this episode was perfect. Well, not perfect, but it was very good in my eyes. Like I say, it's the best one. This is where the story started really being told, because you saw in that one scripted bit, I stepped aside for a second to tell the story of this episode. So, and I just feel this is where the story started really coming together. This is where I nailed it all down, and you can tell in the structure of the episode how I tell the story. And I just feel like the end product of the City of Thrills is really good, especially for what it's supposed to be. Like, for a lazy, unthemed area, I went far too hard on that area. I love how it came out, and once again, it's inspired. Maybe I'm still 50-50 on it. But it has inspired a steampunk area in the next series. And yeah, I'll be looking into that for the next series. I'm not fully sure if I'm going to commit to it just yet. That is my complete ranking of the episodes. Look at me, I have to shove a ranking in every single video somehow. Anyway, for the final part of this video, because I don't want this to go on for too long, here are my plans for the next series. Just so I'm kind of in very quick order. This is just what I plan to change going into the next series, which will come out in, I'm going to say, a week or 2. I am going to take some time off from the series, release some more just miscellaneous videos in the middle. But we will come back to Planet Coaster eventually. The first thing I'm going to change is that the park is going to feel very modern and grand. Richmond Park was a small family park. It has years of history behind it. But I feel like that did kind of work against it, because it can only really build small rides, as that's what I think they would have realistically built. But this new park, and I'm not keeping the name secret or anything, I just actually don't know the name yet. I still need to think of that. But this next park will focus more on big rides. It will have a world-class lineup, hopefully at least. It will have just a lot of really good rides, and I think that's my focus for this. I've built so many small parks now. My past 5 parks have all just been small family parks, and I think I just want to build big for once. So this will be a perfect opportunity to do that. The episodes themselves, they'll be shorter and they'll be lighter on content. So it's not going to be a whole themed area in one episode anymore. They're going to be much lighter on content. So I have already started work on the first episode, although I'm going to come back to it later. But I think that will contain just like the entrance, I built a whole security area for it. Not going to give too much away just yet, but the whole security area, the entrance, and maybe the start of the first rides. Although I'm not fully sure if I'll be able to fit that in. I'll see the length of the video. But I think I'm going to set myself like a 20-minute target on each episode. If it goes any longer, I'll just cut more and more stuff until it gets better. But yeah, I don't want any more 40-minute videos. I want lighter videos, maybe more frequent, but no promises there. Another big change is that there'll be no story or lore to follow. Well, excluding like in-ride lore, but that's not racing you have to follow between episodes. But yeah, there'll be no overarching story, which means you're perfectly fine to skip episodes. Richmond Park was a bit. You could skip the episodes, but you might be missing something. Apart from episode 3, you can skip that one. But yeah, you might have been missing something if you've skipped the episodes. But this one, there'll be no overarching story, so if an episode is boring, skip it. Feel free to skip it. It's perfectly fine by me. Another point is that the series will be longer. Obviously, it's not just going to be 5 episodes again. I'm not going to set an episode limit. It's just going to go until I feel like the park is finished. So I can't even tell you how long this series is going to be. So buckle in. It might be a long one, or it'll be over in 3 weeks. There is no in between with me. And finally, I'm going in mostly unplanned. Apart from 1 or 2 coasters that I know definitely what I'm going to build for them, I'll go into each coaster into each area really, with like the final vision, but nothing in between planned. So a lot of it is going to be like made up on the spot and improvised, which I find works better because it means that I'm not working strict to a big plan. I can just kind of freely add and remove as I feel and build how I want. And that is it for this video. So I'll see you in whatever the next one is, and I'll also see you in the next series whenever that is. Goodbye all.